Hello everyone, welcome to Grade 12 AP Chemistry Review of the Basics. Today I am going to go through with you formula and name. So let me first explain to you what a chemical compound is. A chemical compound is a substance that contains more than one different chemical elements. Compounds are represented in molecular formula. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the ionic compounds. Ionic compounds are generally defined as a compound with one type of cation and one type of anion. So what are cations and what are anions? Well, cations are elements with valence numbers +1, +2, or +3. Anions, on the other hand, are elements that have the valence numbers -1, -2, and -3. These numbers represent the charge of that particular element, and it also means that it relates to how many electrons it has in the outermost shells in order to actually get this overall charge for this particular element. So how do you name ionic compounds based on the cation and the anion? Well, first of all, you would take the full name of the cation as the first part of the compound name, and followed by the name of the anion, which would end in IDE or "ide", such as chloride, right? Charges of the valence in the end must equate to 0. That may not essentially be the case, but let's think of it as a rule in this present time that the ionic compound in the end must have a charge of 0. Please note that there are also some cations with 2 different valence numbers, such as iron. In this case, we would use Roman numerals to represent the charge of the element in this particular compound, such as if it's a iron 2, you will put Roman numeral 2 in brackets. When iron 3, you would put Fe, and then the Roman numeral 3 in brackets. So an example of an ionic compound is NaCl, in which Na has +1 and Cl has -1. So Na is the name for sodium. So you take the full name, sodium, as the first part of the compound name, and then the second, Cl, which is chlorine, but you want the ending as the IDE, so switch it to chloride. So overall, the compound name for NaCl is sodium chloride. Now, after ionic compounds, there are also something called polyatomic ions. These are ions that are combinations of elements. Most common anions are ones dealing with oxygen. Usually, polyatomic ions with 3 oxygens, and there are exceptions, ends in 8. So example is ClO3. which is an anion with a -1 charge. And the name for it actually ends in ATE because of the 3 oxygens. So with the chlorine, you take away the INE, and then because of the 3 oxygen, you put ATE in the end. So it's called chlorate. Now, if there are 4 oxygens in the end, and I'm going to use the example again with chlorine, so you would still get chlorate as in ClO3, but you add the per in the beginning. So ClO4 is actually called perchlorate. Now, as you can see the pattern right here, everything is revolved around with the 3 oxygens, and the naming would change depending if it's 1 more or 1 less. So if there's 1 less oxygen than 3 oxygens, such as ClO2, you would have, instead of 8, you would change the 8 to an ite, ITE. So chlorate would in turn be chlorite. Now, if you have even 1 less of oxygen, such as ClO with only 1 oxygen and 1 chlorine, now the naming is almost the same as the ClO2, which is the chlorite. But as you can see from ClO4, we add something in the front, which is hypo now. So with ClO, you would actually name this as hypochlorite. Now there are also polyatomic cations, but they do not follow naming conventions as the anions, and I wouldn't really go through it in this lecture. So for example of a polyatomic cation is the ammonium, which is the NH4 with 1 plus charge. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the molecular compounds. These are compounds with covalent bonds, and the electrons are shared between the 2 elements. So these 2 elements are usually nonmetals. And the naming scheme is very, very similar to the ionic compounds, except with the inclusion of a prefix system. And the prefix depends on the number of the elements present. So if there's 1, you have mono, 2, you use di, 3, tri, 4, tetra, 5, penta, 6, hexa, 7, hepta, 8, octa, 9, nona, 10, deca. So if the one with the less negative charge in the 2 elements, because the 2 with covalent bonds, usually both of them have negative charge, but the one with the less negative charge goes first in the name, such as nitrogen is going to go before oxygen. And first element only gets a prefix if it has more than 1 of the atoms inside that compound, such as N2O3, which is dinitrogen trioxide. Now, this is different than the second element, which is always starting with a numerical prefix. So, and in the end, it would ends with "ide," as you can see from N2O3 before, which ends with trioxide. So an example is CO, which is the first one. You don't need the mono, right? And we've just used carbon. But the second part, even though we only have one oxygen molecule, you would also put the prefix, which is mono. So the formula name for CO is carbon monoxide. Thank you for visiting our lecture on chemistry. Review the basics. If you are interested in, or you have not done so already, please download our free Grade 12 Chemistry Review of the Basics app, which is available for both iPhone and Android. If you would like to support us in creating more helpful videos for you and in studying for your course, please like our videos, subscribe to our channels, and be sure to share this with your friends so you and your friends can both succeed in your chemistry class. Thank you. See you next time.